I am honored to be invited by the Philippine Star to be a panelist and a guest speaker.
May
I'm
nagbabayad
glad
ng
to be
cellphone.
the mix of friends
Malapit
who are
ng mic.
here with me in the panel. Dr. Vicky Bell is my doctor. My beauty doctor. And Lisa Makuha is also in the arts of dance. In my travels here and abroad, I made a point that our itinerary would include a visit to a museum or a performing arts center because they can tell a lot about the place. Museums serve as a vessel of humanity,
Moderator.
preserving the primary tangible evidence of humankind and the environment. The Performing Arts Center, meanwhile, are more than entertainment halls. They interpret a society's cultural consciousness and bring awareness to its national identity. I'm really amazed with their vast collections of artifacts, artworks, and other objects that have historical, socio-political, cultural, and artistic importance. But walking through the exhibits, I've noticed that most, if not all, artworks on display are made by men. In some museums, there were just a few works by women on exhibit. And that got me thinking, why are women misrepresented and often ignored in the art scene, both as women in art and art by women? In fact, according to the latest numbers from the National Museum of Women in the Arts, about 51% of artists are women. Yet only 5% of the arts displayed in museums is made by female artists. Though women earn more than half of the MFAs granted in the US, only 1/3 of gallery representation is allotted to female artists. Representation on and off the canvas remains a key realm where visibility and influence are strictly contested. In the Philippines, while there are numerous women who are confirmed national artists in dance, theater, music, and literature, we have yet to find a national artist for visual arts who is a woman. As it seems, there is no definite roadmap to have a successful art career. Women have it more difficult. Tracing back to history, one can easily determine how women artists have been subjected to gender stereotypes. In the past, women artists would often hear cruel and degrading remarks that they should stay at home and just be a good housewife, and that they are more suitable to hold a needle than a brush or a pen. In the artistic world of the past, there had been a total disregard for women. Men were kings. They were in control of arts. For a woman to flourish in the art scene, it was necessary for her to publish her novels, poems, and other literary works under a pseudonym, one that carried a male name. For women visual artists, they signed their works using mere initials, or under their married name, or worse, after their husband's name. Back then, people think that men were the real artists, the geniuses who mattered. The works of male writers were considered more important than their female counterparts. One would fall under misconception that there are too few women artists around the world because men have the headlines of the art world, while women artists have gained more respect and acknowledgement of the 21st century. They still experience hardship and disrespect. While they now have the freedom to pursue their passion, they will struggle with the prevailing misconception and stereotypes. There is still a need to convince the public on the importance and credibility of their works. This prevailing notion should be put to rest. Women have always been at the forefront of art. Women in arts have consistently contributed heavily to design, fine arts, and performance arts. The lack of female representation and recognition of the local art landscape does not mean that there is a shortage of notable Filipino women artists. There has never been a dearth of women artists. If we look at Philippine art history, Pelagia Mendoza Icutiapin became the first woman artist to gain an auspice of the art community. She was the first woman student of the Academia de Dibujo y Pintura, the only co-educational institution during the Spanish era. Under the mentorship of Agustin Saez and Lorenzo Rocha, she won the Art Award in Sculpture for a bust of Columbus during the Cuatro Centennial, the discovery of America. Then there was Carmen Zaragoza y Rojas, who excelled in painting. Her work, Dos Inteligencias, won a prize at an 1892 Columbus celebration, and in the 1895, she was awarded a copper medal for the two landscape works at the Exposición Regional de Filipinas. Let's not forget Paz Paterno. Not much is known about the artist except that she descended from a family of art patrons from Quiapo, and that she came under the tutelage of Lorenzo Guerrero, Felix Martinez, and Teodoro Benaventura. Her teachers were highly regarded for their exemplary work in portraiture, still life, and landscape. After the Pacific War, Anita Magsaysay Ho swept the art scene. She was a respected member of the 13 Moderns, with the pioneering modernist Victor Edades at the helm. As a legacy of that modern spirit, Nena Sagil, known as the first woman abstractionist, stunned the artwork with her distinct cosmology of dots and veins. Women also dominated the literary world. If we read contemporary history of Philippine literature, one could get the impression that women only started writing and publishing only during the American period. But women writers have been writing and publishing works during the Spanish period, the same time that Jose Rizal, Marcelo del Pilar, Pedro Paterno, Graciano Lopez Haina, and other male writers were making names for themselves, such as Gregoria de Jesus, wife of Andres Bonifacio, wrote the notable Tagalog poetry, and Leona Florentino became the foremost Ilocano writer of her time. Is now regarded as the founder of women's literature in the Philippines. Looking after their literary heels were Paz Marquez Benitez, offered the first Filipino modern English language short story, Dead Stars, published in the Philippine Herald in 1925. And Estrella Alfon was the only female member of the Veronicans, an avant-garde group of writers in the 1930s, who write exclusively in English, led by Francisco Arcellana and H.R. Ocampo. In the performing arts, we have women who made their marks. Our national artists Alice Reyes, Lucrecia Casilag, Francisca Reyes Aquino, Leonor Orosa, Vita Fuentes, Atang de la Rama, Lucrecia Reyes Urtula, Andrea Veneracion, among others. Women couldn't be limited to being muse or model. Women create, women can lead, women can inspire, women can encourage, women can have a voice. People should not devalue the work of women, but celebrate their achievements. We have to recognize how brave the women fought to have their works treated equally. The quality of women's artistry has been no less outstanding than their male counterparts. Filipino women artists made their mark and have contributed in development of Philippine arts. The Cultural Center of the Philippines, through the GAD Committee, has been raising awareness on gender equality in the arts disciplines. More than just an art and cultural institution, the CCP has been creating and facilitating platforms that pursue gender and development, as well as promote inclusivity and equality. We at the CCP believe that women should have greater participation in the arts, given equal access and contribution to film, theater production, arts, music, literature, and other art fields. Women should not be hindered from developing their full potentials. Women have interesting narratives to tell and a rich heritage to share. They tap into the complexity of their struggle to create artworks that are at par with the world's best. They dig deep into their colorful history and rich heritage to firmly cement their identities, the same way arts and culture convey our identity as Filipino people. Through the years, women have been committed to develop their arts beyond genderism and criticism. We have strong conviction to change the world, one artwork, dance, song, or poem at a time. We change with the world. We change the world through our arts. We talk about critical issues with the movement we do, the literary piece we write, the canvas we feel, the melody we sing, the performance we do. We are not confined by our gender. One's gender should not determine whether or not a person will become a great artist. Whether in arts or other fields, women can create masterpieces because we have a great capacity to love, which we learned from our mothers who love us unconditionally. As long as we can speak up as women, we can create masterpieces in the service of others. Whether it be film, literature, visual arts, dance, or beauty, or outside the universe of arts, women can. Next time, I would like to visit the museum, and I hope to see more works of women artists in this place. Thank you.
I didn't realize that, there are not any national artists for visual arts that are women. This is not yet. Well, we hope to change this. Before we start, I'd like to introduce our final panelist, premier host and imagologist, and he's an avid art collector as well, a good friend of ours, Tim Yap.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. I don't know why I'm here. I am the token
Male?
I'm a token male. I don't know, that's what I told you, Vicky. I'm a Bella baby.
Yes, I'm a Bella baby as well. Okay, so this is a very interesting discussion, and one of the things that, of course, comes to mind is, why is it that throughout the years we have been regarded, or women has been regarded as having maybe less talent than men? But I came with my own question earlier: is how much of it is auto-censure? Meaning, how much of it is, as a woman, are we afraid to tackle things like sex or violence as an artist that seem difficult, right? And tackle it through our arts and our creativity.
Okay, I'll answer first because usually ladies first, but then now because I'm the token thorn here, let me say something. Yes, token woman. I think the belief about men and women and why initially people always believed women to be the weaker sex was that because of our breathing since we were children about Adam and Eve, right? The story goes from the Bible that there's a rib from Adam pulled out and then it became Eve, right? So it became like the second. So after the champion, first runner-up. So it was always regarded that way. But of course, that's only one theory, and I think deep down from the mindsets of people, of us when we were kids, Eve came from Adam, so how can she be better? How can they be equal? There lies that kind of misconception about the difference between women and men. But of course, us Filipinos, we know how important women are, how equal women are. Like I was raised by five sisters and my mother and my grandmother. So everybody around me, they were all women. And even now in all my chat groups, all my friends, they're all women. You know that, right? Yes.
How about Miss Furley? I mean, you call yourself the chairwoman and the CEO of advertising is a very male-dominated field, right? And let's maybe hear your reactions to that.
the 60s Mad Men is still on today. Okay, so in the world, there are 100 top chief creative officers. Only 8 are women. In the world, it's not even top 1 Philippines. Okay, so it's so hard to get into that, to break the glass ceilings in the corporate world, especially in the creative world of advertising. So every time I join this group, a See It, Be It group, it's based in Europe, and it's when you don't see women up there, you don't become it. So you see it, be it. So we push, you have to be leaders, seeing women as leaders so that the other younger women will follow suit. So what are the things that stop us? I said, we have long hours. Creatives have long hours. We don't come home. I remember when I was 8 months pregnant, I would come home at 4 because I have bitches. So it's really long hours. And therefore, the women who would wish to have a family or have a boyfriend who's not going to be mad at them or breaking them up with them, so they go like, I'd rather sacrifice my career. I'd rather not push through. So that's where the difficulty is. And then I start saying, you don't have to give up your career. We have support system, especially in the Philippines. So there's a lot of hardships. In
self-doubt as well.
That's number 1 too, because of lack of confidence. That's how we were brought up. We were brought up in a Catholic society that mahiya ka to speak up first, the men first. So you sort of like put yourself on the second. And when you do that in the world, you have to shout out before they hear you. So you go down the ladder all the more. So that's hard in the corporate world.
Well, for me, I've been very lucky because I never felt it, really, not in the medical profession, and especially not in the profession that I've chosen, right? So abroad, I think when I go to all these conventions, I would say dermatologists, 70% are men, 30% are women. But in the Philippines, it's 90% of the dermatologists are women. Although I did venture into cosmetic surgery, and that's where the men were. But I think I was blessed to grow up as an only child. You know, although I'm part of 9 children, I was adopted by the Bellows. So I grew up as an only child, and I was never ever given, because I had no one to compare to. And my parents, of course, were very nurturing. I think it really also depends on how you raise your children. They never said anything. It was a non-issue, whether I was a woman or a man, and I think that's what it should be. Not like, I'm as good as a man. I don't think anger is a very good, something that will propel you to become successful, or it might, but then you won't be joyful because it's not coming from a good place. But because I was just, my dad just said, you know, just do whatever, you were put on earth by God to do something. You have to figure out what that is. I was lucky enough that when I was 5 years old and I was bullied because I was adopted, so a lot of my classmates would make fun of me and say, oh, why did they give you away? Is it because you're ugly? Or is it because you're so fat? And you know, at 5 years old, you don't really have a screen, you don't have much of a protection. But the way I took it was very positively. I mean, I cried and all that, but then I made a conclusion at 5 years old, oh, when you're ugly and you're fat, people give you away, they don't love you. Because that was kind of the message. So I said, okay, I'll spend my life making people beautiful and making people sexy so that they will not be given away. Thank you. So that's where Bello Medical Group came from. And then I got acne when I was 11, bad case of acne. And I went to all the doctors in Manila and nobody could cure it. It was that time, it was only like prick, alcohol next to you, prick. And you know, you put acne surgery, but I wasn't getting any bad toothpaste, ano na lang, di ba? So then I decided, well, sitting in their offices, waiting for hours to get my turn to be pricked, I said, oh, okay, I think I'll become a dermatologist because obviously there's a lack of them since I waited hours. And so I just went on. It was very, I think when you find your passion, when you don't pay attention so much to what are you doing, are you going to encroach on my, you know, then you just go forward, and I followed my own song, I followed my own rules. I'm not a typical dermatologist. I went through so much, it's funny, but if there was any discrimination that I felt more, it was both men and women. It wasn't, in fact, it was a lot of women who would talk and say things. Yeah, so you just kind of close your ears and, you know, look at your situation, and this is where I want to go. am I going to be helping people, which I think I am. And I'm so blessed that my works of art are walking around. So, I'm very happy when I see that. I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything. This is where it's so wonderful to see her. Steph, Isabella, yeah, Marge. Oh, meron pang ads. See, ang galing ko talaga.
I think we're very fortunate in the Philippines that we are one of the most gender equal countries in the world. To be honest, I think women have a lot of opportunities here. And as you said, many of our fears or preconceived notions or self-doubt actually comes from other women who don't support you, right? And that's often a case as well. But I'd like to talk to Lisa about, your experience as a ballerina and making it abroad as well, and how did you ever encounter anything out there?
Well, I guess like in dermatology, in ballet and school, there are more ballerinas, more female dancers than there are male dancers. But there are not more female choreographers, for example, than are male choreographers. In fact, in the English National Ballet, when Tamara Rojo became artistic director and created a triple bill with only all 3 female choreographers doing the 3 ballets with the world premieres in that occasion. She couldn't understand why it was such a big deal that that it was so unusual to have a triple bill with just 3 female choreographers. It's strange to see male dancers, for example, being male ballet teachers and teaching little girls. I believe that, male ballet dancers should teach the males, and female ballet dancers should teach the little girls, Because again, it's a different kind of approach. They say that the ballerinas, they can't really choreograph because they don't know how to partner. They're just the ones being partnered, but they don't know how to manipulate the bodies. But I don't believe in that. I've done choreography, I've done adagios, and I know how the ballerina is supposed to feel like in this lift. But again, it's the stereotype of the male being physically stronger, and in a very physical art form, there is still always the greater demand for the male ballet dancer to say jump higher or turn more, being technically stronger than the female counterpart. But then you have the great ballet choreographer George Balanchine, who said that ballet is woman.
That's lovely. Tina Margie, I have a question. What about, do you feel that in your encounters with artists that men have a different approach to creating art? And is that true, or do you think women have a softer approach, and are the inspirations different?
I don't think so. I think women are just as talented as men, even as director or filmmaking. They have the same way of thinking. Women have also created action films, for instance. So I don't see any difference in the arts with women and men. But at the CCP, we encourage the women to come out and direct and write plays, become playwriters or screenwriters. Because if you don't encourage them, they don't come out and prove themselves. So that's one way that we do it, because we have experimental theater. So they are able to practice their craft, the CCP.
Do you think women are afraid of using their voice nowadays and really telling the truth? I find also myself sometimes auto-censoring because, I'm a woman, I shouldn't really say these things sometimes because of my mother will get shocked or something like this, right? So do you feel like this is an issue in creating and creation?
I got into a lot of trouble speaking up. A lot. Like I lost clients. Sometimes you just have to say things. It just as it is. It's just that we're not, I think, something about Filipinos, sometimes they're not ready. There's some people, especially the older group, my clients, for example, they're not ready for a woman to be speaking out. Right now, my company was bought by the Japanese, right? So I'm Dentsu. So when I go to Dentsu, there is something about Japanese not letting women lead. They're very conservative. Like all the top floor, there is a floor of the gods, they call it. All the top employees are all men. So what I do, I'm rallying these Japanese friends, women friends of mine, all the creative directors, women. I'm trying to rally them to move up to the God's floor. I might just be the first one to step on that. It's just that I don't like it. I have a great grandmother who's Japanese, and I would understand how they look down in a way why men will always lead. But I think it's changing. So if I could break that, that would probably be great. But I know it's tough. But I always get into trouble because I try to do that.
How is art, and this is for anyone here, how does art play a role in breaking that glass ceiling and offering a voice or a platform for women?
Well, I can't really relate to that. Men are on the top floor and all that because like I was raised by my mother. When my father, who I love so much, but he was always out at night. Sounds familiar. And it was my mother who raised me. And so also when I started out in my career and I was as a young kid, I was in the theater, and it was run by all women. It was maybe Zenaida Amador, Baby Barredo. It was all women. So I really look at leadership. There's no, for me at least personally, as a creative in this generation, that I look at men and women with equal respect. That's just me.
And you're an art collector. How much of your artwork is by women? Local contemporary art? I mean, just out of curiosity.
Again, with the art that I have, a lot of it, now that I'm checking, it's mostly by men, but a lot of women also. But I never purchase or support, because it's about their sexuality. It's about how their art expresses themselves to me and how it connects to me. It's never about, but although I realize that I have a lot of strong pieces that are my favorite that are made by women.
Anyone else?
Well, I think that in the creative industry, in the performing arts and arts, I think the primary objective really when you create a work of art is to communicate a story or to tell a story. And I think the way the arts can help get women have a voice is to present more stories about women, for example, in the art. But in ballet, it is really about the woman. Odette Odile in Swan Lake is still the epitome of the dual, the evil, cunning woman, the warm, innocent, lyrical white swan and the black swan. But then again, you have, say, maybe a lot of stories about like our national heroes. But I don't think there is a ballet about Princesa Duha or any of our Gabriela Sila. Yeah, we should.
You should make it already.
So again, it's basically getting the material or creating the material that puts women in the front line and tells their story.
I'd like to open up the floor actually to any questions out there. If there's anybody who has any questions for our panelists, just raise your hand. Anyone? No? Okay, well, so don't be shy. If in any time you want to come in and have a question for any of our panelists, please let one of us know and come up and give your question. Let's talk about muses, right? For the longest time, women were the muse and men were the creators. How is it today? Do you feel like you can be both muse and creator, or do we reject even the idea of being a muse?
there are male muses also now. So it's also shifted when Vicky launched Bello Men. She was the creator and she got, Pion Pascual and all these other guys to be Isko Moreno, your man, who's gonna be here later. And these are her muses. Right?
I think there's nothing wrong with making women a muse at the same time the creator. I mean, women are pretty to look at. I mean, there's absolutely so unapologetic for that. So when we say, I used to remember, is it something that I push the women in the office, like, what if I want to pretty myself and put makeup? That's okay. It puts more confidence, 20%. If you want to dress up, well, that's okay. The only not okay for me really at work is when women put down each other. It's only because it's so hard already alive for us to break the glass ceilings and then we put each other down. And I remember Madeline Albright was saying there's a special hell for women who bring down women, right? So I'm afraid of that. But the thing is, yeah, it's hard as it is. So push each other up so we get to see more leaders.
Maybe we can share a little bit more about that point. Oh, go ahead, Rita. But
I was going to say that I grew up also in a era where my mother was a teacher. But when I was in high school, she made me take summer classes in shorthand. At that time there was the shorthand. And typing. Because she wanted me to start as a secretary. Nothing wrong with being a secretary, but she said, you can't find a job when you go to work. You can use being a secretary as a stepping stone. But little did she know that I became a beauty pageant winner, and I used that as a stepping stone. So I was amused. So, but I knew how to work life out with the talent that I had. So I was telling earlier here that I also started advertising. I was a sales account executive, and it was also a world of men. So I used to drink with them. I used, in advertising, you drink a lot. But I was the one who was presenting all the presentations to the client. So they still used me because I was a woman. I could present better than them to the clients in advertising. But I was going to say that in everyday life, we use art. Just thinking out of the box is also an art form. So it's not just because you're an artist that you use art. In our everyday life, we're all artists.
That's because you're always creating. But I'd like to just mix it up a bit because I actually come from a very different place. I actually feel that the men are the ones that are kawawa now. Because, for example, in my clinic, I have 600 employees. I would say 530 of them are women, and they're all breadwinners. Or they earn better than their husbands. And then they go home and then they cook and they clean. So they've taken actually the man's role of, it was very clear before the man brings home the bacon, goes out into the world, he earns. The woman stays at home, takes care of the children, etc. Now the women have really gone out there and in many ways have become more successful than men. I think there is definitely a ceiling where in the top echelon, it seems to be like there's still a lot of men. But in terms of just the second level, there are really a lot of women. And I feel that the women have evolved so much. They're kind of, in a lot of ways, except for sex. Or maybe they can be all, but the women are kind of self-sufficient. They can support themselves, be a mother, and the men kind of like, okay, what's our role now? Men who stay home and take care of the children are looked down upon. Even if they are, like my husband, Hayden, for example. He's I think he's a wonderful teacher. He takes such good care of Scarlett, etc. But he wants to go to work. Even if he has independent income, he said, because Scarlett has to see me, because I'm a man, I have to. So it's a stereotype that he has to do, right? He has to go to work, and he said, so you can spend more time with her. But I know that Scarlett keeps looking for him, like, Mommy can, because Daddy teaches me so many things, but he can't do that. He's not allowed to do that. So that's bad for him, right? Okay, people would look down on him if he didn't work. Whereas me, I can work, I don't have to work, I don't know what I can do, I have the choice of choosing everything. So, I feel men have not evolved and women have evolved so much. So I think now they're a bit threatened. If there's any yes, don't you think they're threatened? Like, oh no, here they are, they're going to take over the world. And
And we can truly do everything, right? I mean,
You know that too.
even in the provinces, I mean, you really see these women working all day and they come home and they manage everything in the house, right? One question, do you feel that nowadays you have to act like a man to play with the men, or can we embrace our femininity and be in the level playing field? Because right, there are some women who like, oh, have to drink like the men and dress and work, or can we be fully feminine, like the
You can
Margie
act
said?
like a woman and play with a man.
We know this. Tara.
No, I think, okay, so men and women are equal, definitely, but we're equal in different ways. You know, as Lisa says, they're physically stronger. There's nothing we can do about it unless we work so hard. But they can carry and whatever. But we are strong in different ways, so we should embrace our strengths. And actually, we can, we can really get a lot more from men, I think, by being women. Because I go to the States a lot, and I go and I do conferences and dermatology things, and I hear a lot of talk in the ladies' bathroom, toilet, that's where everything comes out. And the women, because a lot of them are very aggressive. You know, like opening the door, what's the big deal? Like they get mad. Me, I still feel bad if the guy doesn't open the door for me. I mean, of course, I'm capable of opening it, but it's just chivalry. It's just making me feel more like a woman. You know, like I'll ask Amanda, it doesn't mean that I'm inferior because I'm going to ask him if he's hungry. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So they say, oh, they're no good man today. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, even if I was a man, I'd be scared of you. I won't be you. You look so gully. So, yes, I think definitely we should be, the differences are exciting. I think God made us different and equal. And that's just the way you should accept it. You don't become more equal by acting like a man. You can actually use your femininity to rise up in this world.
I think as women artists, for example, and art creators, one of our distinct advantages over men is we have a very creative way of cutting costs and balancing budgets and basically making whatever budget you have work for you. So I think that's one advantage that we have over men.
I think one superpower women would have, like me, the mom's instinct. I mean, we all have the I call it superpower because the men don't have it. So somehow, I don't have to be manly in a boardroom, for example. Somehow you can read people in the room. Somehow you know what to say, what not to say. You can feel, you can look at the way their shoulders are, and you know, they're uncomfortable with this. You can read through, and you know how you proceed with that meeting because of that. And I saw, maybe it's because I have this gut feel, I have this inborn thing that you can read people. And I asked other women about it, and they all have it. So I go like, maybe you can just strengthen what you have, what gift you have. You don't have to be the same. When you say gender equality, it's all about looking at all our talents at the same time and equalizing. It should be equal because we're all gifted. We should be in that way, but not like equal the way we dress, the way we talk. We don't have to do that.
I just wanted to add one thing that makes us extra strong. Ladies, man flu, right? Man flu. So, do we not know what man flu is? When women are sick and we have sipon, right? And we push through, we still have to go to work. We still have to take care of our kids. We still have to make them padedet, everything, whatever. And get our work done, and be a mother, wife, and daughter, and everything. But when men are sick, when they're in the bed,
I still go
it's
to
like
work.
the end of the world.
I show up.
Forget the man. You were raised by strong women, right? So yeah, no. But I noticed that when men are sick, they tend to they need the nurturing of the women in their lives, right? But they need their mom. Yeah. Do we still have time for questions from the floor? If we have anyone there? No. No questions. Okay. They're shy. I know. I think because you're all very entertaining. Okay, so moving forward, we're going towards a digital world now, right? I mean, this is very clear. You're very well versed in digital creation, content creation, and even robotics and AI. do you feel that women have a different perspective on this tech world that we're living in, and what can they bring to maybe make it a softer world?
You know, in one of the malls we launched out, parang you guys can know. Yes, in one of the malls in an SM mall that we launched the robot, the first ever robot that would the automated, you know, you press where to go. Yeah, and the name of the robot is Sam. Sam can be both male and can be female, right? But the voice of the robot is female. So you know, so maybe because it's more accommodating when you talk to them. So you know, even the makers of robotics, they know that it has to be both. It has to be equal. You know, so that's going to be the voice of the future. That's going to be how we are going to, I don't know, buy the transactions. Business within the future will be transacted by somebody, like a robot that can be both male and female. So it doesn't have to be an or. It doesn't have to be male or female. It can be both male and female.
Okay, in the world today, when you do create, they say there are data-led creativity. Meaning, you call all the data, for example, all the people who fly this airline, what age, what do they like, what kind of food. So all those data now is dumped together, and then we use that for AI, for artificial intelligence. So later on, you can provide services in the airline, and then you can use AI. Now, in my line of work, when we do creative, it says data-led creativity. So they put all the data to us. So we know what you like, what people, let's say 50-year-old women, what do they like? What do they buy? What time do they buy? So all of that we go into it. But yes, it takes over a little bit of creativity because it's already dictated to us what to do. But what it lacks is the human touch. So we still need us to think of, yeah, the 50-year-old woman would buy this at 7 p.m. or would watch this Netflix show at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. and she would switch to the show. So you get to see that. What do you want to tell this woman? No robot, no data, we change data to data inspired. It should inspire creativity, not lead creativity. So what we do, we look at the data, but what do I want to tell this woman? How would I create a story around it? The human touch is very important, or else all the advertising, all the messages out there would be the same, because the data doesn't really change.
How much of the advertising work in your field, for example, are campaigns led by men for women? I'm curious.
Oh, I respect men too in their ideas, because they're not really creative, and there are a lot of he for she's in this industry, so I really bow down to them too. But there should be no stereotyping. When I was starting out as a copywriter, they all give me the women products, sanitary napkin, diapers, cooking. I don't even cook. So, I mean, I can't even relate to doing that. But it's so stereotyped because I'm a woman, they give me all the shampoo, like that. And then the men, all the lumber, the cars. It's so stereotyped. It's not that way. So, today, we do especially with online studying, I could learn how men look at cars. I can write too. Men do that. I remember this man in our group, doesn't understand menstruation, and he goes like, so Marley, I'm writing for this sanitary pad, so every hour it spurts out. No. But I love the feeling of him trying to ask people and understand us, doing his research. And if more men rather, would do research, they would understand us more. So I like them working on women. What's math and what is shiny? Who would ask me that? And it's funny. So I like that.
And what about in the arts, Tika? Like, do you feel that there are a lot of men now really encouraging also women artists or collaborating with them? Has it changed?